100, and then we'll be able to begin. So we are at 87. That's a good number. That's a good number. I like the way lawyers are joining in from all over. Evan Soange, karibu sana. Meli advocate from Eldoret, karibu sana. Uko mnasemaje Eldoret? Let's keep on joining. Let's wait until we are about 100, and then we'll be able to begin. So we are at 87. That's a good number. That's a good number. I like the way lawyers are joining in from all over. Evan Soange, karibu sana. Keep going. Eldoret, karibu sana. Mute my mic. Eldoret. Let's keep on joining. Let's wait until we are about 100, and then we'll be able to begin. So we are at 87. That's a good number. That's a good number. I like the way lawyers are joining in from all over. So it's okay? YouTube is okay? All right. Okay. So check out on YouTube. We are sharing the link shortly in some of the platforms so that you can share it with your friends, so that we are able to join also from YouTube. Thank you, CMS Dali Inamda from Mombasa office. Karibu sana. Innocent Makaka from Makaka, and Kiramana Advocates. Thank you for joining us from Nairobi. Alexia Waweru, In-house Counsel, Competition Authority. Thank you so much, Alexia, for joining us. I think I attended one of your trainings and I liked the way you did your training. So that's really good. Assessor Omolo from Omolo Rotich and Company Advocates. Thank you for joining us. All right. So I guess we are good to go. So by way of introduction, my name is Victor Mulindi. I'm an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. By day, I'm the managing partner of a firm called K&K Advocates LLP. In short, in long, it's Hayesi Jamian Hayesi, which is a mouthful. And by night, what I do is do things like this, helping lawyers to leap. So we have a platform called Emerging Law Firms Forum, where we decided that there are a lot of law firms that are coming up and they need a lot of support. And the knowledge is not out there just for a few people, but for everyone to just come together and learn together. So it's part of an initiative that was started by the Emerging Law Firms Forum. And part of that initiative is what we call the LEAP program. I'm sure you've been seeing us going around the country. We've been to Nakuru, we've been to Nairobi, we've been to Mombasa, and just talking to lawyers about how to best manage their law firms. And we are going to be doing a lot of series as we go forward to make sure that the knowledge piles up and we become better lawyers and become better managers of our firms. So thank you so much for joining in. Thank you for coming together. Please keep on sharing the link. We can have as many as 300 attendees on this platform, and I'm sure we're going to have a good time. So a good welcome again. And we are here at Lawyers Hub. Thank you, Linda, for hosting us here. And in a short while, I will just be introducing our panelists. So today, as we all know, we are dealing with a very dire situation, something called the COVID-19, caused by the coronavirus. It's only the other day when I realized that COVID means coronavirus disease of the year 2019, COVID-19. And this is one phenomenon, or call it pandemic, that has really shut down the whole world. You've seen the photos of all the flights grounded. You've seen that international travel has changed. People are now required to practice social distancing. People are now required to sanitize. These are terms that we are not used to. And it's a new normal. And the question that we want to ask today is, how is this pandemic affecting your practice? And I'd like you to share your comments on the chat. And today we have several panelists with us. And as I will just introduce them one by one. These are people that you know, you've interacted with. Some of them you don't know, and I'll make sure that I introduce each and every one of them. So we have Dr. Catherine Gahu. Dr. Catherine Gahu I've met her this year, and I feel like she's already very close to me, and I'm telling you, she's a phenomenal woman. She's one of the few directors of top companies in this country that are actually female. And she's the chairman, get this, chairman of a company called SBO Research. And she's a consultant, entrepreneur, trainer, researcher, and has many companies that she has served as a director. And I'd like to call her a guru in marketing. And today she's going to talk to us about how we are going to maintain our brand as lawyers. So if Dr. Catherine, if you can hear me, just unmute your microphone and say hi to the audience today. There you go.
Can't hear you.
Hello, everybody. Happy to be here. Yeah, good to have you.
Yeah, Dr. Maybe just you can tell us, why did you decide to use the title chairman and not chairwoman? Maybe just a short, before you go to the next panelist introduction, yeah.
In my early training about those positions, I was trained by a woman who told us that the position, chairman is a position, it's not a person. And that the whole business of trying to change it into chair lady, chairwoman, chair whatever, it's almost like trying to suggest the job changes, but your responsibility remains the same. And then again, I'm a believer in the neutral world of man. Man does not belong to anyone. It's all of us. It's humanity, mankind. Yes,
all right.
That's how I see it.
Thank you, Dr. Dr. has a wealth of information. I think she's currently serving in the board of Britain and also the Communication Commission of Kenya as a director. So we also have with us a person that you all know, Maria Mbeneka. Maria Mbeneka is a former LSK council member, and she is also a partner in a law firm called KKM Advocates. She's also a member of the International Bar Association. Please correct me if I'm wrong, Maria.
Commonwealth Lawyers Association.
Yeah, Commonwealth Lawyers Association. I'll tell you why I mentioned International Bar Association. I was watching something from them yesterday. So, karibu sana, Maria. It's good to see you here.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, and today Maria will be talking to us about how, just painting the picture on how this pandemic has affected practice and what we can do as lawyers to tackle the situation. All right, so we were going to have Olivia, but she's having challenges joining. Once we get her, we'll be able to continue. And then we also have, interestingly, most of these people I've met this year, and it seems like I've been with them forever. I've known them forever. So we also have with us Margaret Njihia, a clinical psychologist, and she's the founder of a firm called Family Wellness Center, and she's a much sought after psychologist. In fact, I tell you a secret, she was one of the psychologists that were called to go to the what are they called? Margaret, please help me here.
Quarantine centers.
Yes, quarantine centers. The word that was coming to my mind was concentration camps. I really was trying to say those words. Anyway, the quarantine centers, just to help those ladies and gentlemen to cope with the situation. So today she's going to help us understand the ramifications of COVID-19 on the mental capacity of lawyers. So we've been talking so much about mental wellness, and today she's going to paint that picture for us. We'll also have Daniel Kani. I think when he's able to join us, he'll talk about the financial ramifications. So how we are going to do this session, and before I continue, we also have Linda. Linda, are you there? Linda is the founder of Lawyers Hub. She's a tech lawyer. So she's going to also talk to us about what are the new areas of law that lawyers can look to, that when it comes to pandemics like this, we'll not be able to have a challenge. So Linda, say something so that we can know that you're actually there. Linda, karibu sana.
Hi. My study cannot compare to Maria's. Maria is looking all cool, but I'm joining in and I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So just to begin, there's been a lot of talk about how lawyers are coping with the COVID-19, and there have been concerted efforts by the judiciary to catch up to the situation. The LSK is also trying to do something. So I'd like Maria to just help us understand how this pandemic has affected practice and what we can do as lawyers to cope with this situation, and also just to an analysis of whether judiciary is doing all it can. I know she doesn't speak for judiciary, but from a point of view of a lawyer who has been in leadership at LSK, are they doing enough to help us cope with this situation? So Maria, over to you. Help us paint the picture and understand what we can do. All right.
So first off, thank you very much, Victor, for this lovely webinar. I'd like to say that this is the new normal now that we have been thrown into this lifestyle where we have to work remotely. And I know this is a foreign concept for many people. A lot of us are learning. It's a new learning for us. I'd like to say a relearning. And more so for the judiciary, it's that much harder. The active advocates, if you look at the number of active advocates, many of them are into litigation. I would venture about 50% or thereabouts are in litigation. So that's why you're seeing a lot of discussion about the closure of courts and how it has affected practitioners. What we've had since early March, I would say, is that the courts have basically been delivering judgments and rulings, and not much has been happening in terms of hearings. And of course, this has affected the day-to-day operations of many, many advocates. This in the background and the context of some of the public health regulations that are in place have made it that much more difficult, because even if you're able to access the courtrooms, what kind of preparations have been put in place by the judiciary, for example, to hear matters? We know that there have been open hearings in some of the courts, and in Milimani, we've seen that the courts are sitting outside. In some tribunals, they are able to sit and observe social distance. I was a bit worried when the deputy governor of Mombasa was arraigned in court in Mombasa. The court was packed, and there was no social distancing that was being observed at that point. And so when we've had a situation where this NCAJ has come out and said that they're scaling down on operations, that saw us looking at the issue of just dealing with judgments and rulings being delivered online. And then you had pleas being taken at their cells. These have been ongoing. And then we had the president of the Law Society agitate for the opening of the courts. That was done through a communique from the NCAJ. I think that was about a week and a half or 2 weeks ago. And then 2 days ago, we had another communique from the NCAJ where the CJ said that it was not possible to upscale, court operations in the manner that was expected. Now, this has caused a lot of uproar amongst the lawyers, because there are many who feel that not enough is being done by the judiciary. For me, this is an opportunity by the judiciary to actually seize the opportunity to really move and run with the adoption of technology. It's been a long time coming. It's something that we've prepared for a long time. I've been part of that process where we have given our views through the LSK to the Integrated Court Management System Committee that is headed by Justice Getambu. We did a lot of good work. We advised on the practice directions that the CJ published and gazetted. We have recommended changes to the civil procedure, the criminal procedure, and e-filing should be done. But you have a problem where the judiciary has not come out to paint the proper picture for us to say the level of preparedness across the board, because you'll find some courts are active in engaging online. For example, today you've seen the president of the Court of Appeal releasing the cause list or a communique where they're going to be delivering judgments this week. And I'm meant to understand there'll be over 100 judgments and rulings. But also the nature of the proceedings is more or less in the criminal practice. So you have the other, you have other issues where you have other situations, sorry, where the other areas of practice are more or less stuck. Conveyancing, for example, is really a big headache for a lot of the practitioners. And this happened BC, before Corona. And, you know, it's just a bad situation being made worse. Why can't the registry digitize? You had scaling down of operations at the, you know, BRS, Business Registration Services. I'm not so sure whether that has been improved. We have had KIPI, for example, functioning as normal, Copyright Board functioning as normal. What I'd like to see, for example, is a situation where we are appraised of the budget that has been allocated to the judiciary to upscale the judicial technological you know, program. We need to see how many courts are actually live online, because what we are witnessing right now is a myriad of communication from different courts, from the magistrates courts, from the high court, different stations. And it's, you know, many of them are either to postpone matters, mentions, many of them are saying that they'll be delivering judgments, but we are not seeing actual proceedings happening. Yet the officers are supposed to be on duty and are on duty. And in fact, you will have seen a communication today from the CJ reprimanding some of the judicial officers who are not available. But let's go back to the beginning. How prepared are we as advocates to take on this new way of dealing, especially in legal services, now that we have to work remotely, now that we have to observe social distance, and now that we have to deal with some of the headaches that have come with this, you know, COVID. For example, many law firms are struggling to stay afloat. They were struggling before COVID, and it's the situation has been compounded. What do you do with your employees? How many law firms had a contingency fund to be able to cushion them for the next 4, 5, 6 months? How many will have to lay off their employees, and so on and so forth?
All right. That's a very good observation that you've done there. But I'd like you to paint a picture just for the sake of being real. And this is something that has affected, let's say, 90% of law firms. I was listening to a webinar by the International Bar Association, specifically on this issue of COVID. And they said that one of the panelists who consults for a lot of law firms talked about that most of the firms that he dealt with experienced a cash crunch within the first month of the lockdown. Most of those countries in the European area and the European continent, Asia, North America are all on lockdown. And they started experiencing a lot of cash crunch. So help us understand, how are we as lawyers meant to deal with this situation? This is an unprecedented situation. We've never seen, at least in my lifetime, I've never experienced anything like this. So what do you think lawyers should do in terms of just getting their minds wrapped around this situation and understanding what they need to do next?
I think the first thing to come to realization or come to terms with is that this is a situation that is not going to end at the end of this month or even next month. We should plan ahead, way ahead, maybe possibly another 3-4 months, given the statistics and happenings in terms of infections across the world. Secondly, as a society, where are we in the cushioning of businesses that has, you know, there are businesses that are set to benefit from the COVID fund? I have tried to look at the statistics from the economic survey. And if you look at the chapter that talks about governance, and this is the chapter where you will see the number of cases that have been disposed by the judiciary, you know, the criminal cases, and so on and so forth. Lawyers are a small line, and I'll share it. I think I'll share it in the chat. We are at the bottom of that table, and what is captured in the entire economic survey about lawyers, the number of practicing advocates. Never mind that we are integral in all economic aspects that contribute to the economy of this. So if you look at land transactions, if you look at the banking sector, if you look at even the ease of doing business, disposal or arbitration of disputes, lawyers are in it, but we are not considered or we are not seen as contributors to the economy. So we are not even factored into the 40 billion that has been spent so far. So my concern is that as legal services, we should be pushing to be at the front of even being recognized as beneficiaries, or legal an essential services, an essential service that is actually viable and should be a beneficiary of some of this cushioning.
It's not cancelled. No, for you as the one for you to be sure. Oh, because me have cancelled mine.
Yeah, so I can hear Dr. Catherine. So anyway, so we need to, one, quickly move to ensure that lawyers are actually recognized in that manner. Number two, this is about now looking at your law firm as a business. How well prepared are we generally when we're looking at do we have business plans? Have we prepared for such eventualities where we will not be able to work? Do we belong to SACCOs, for example, where we can say that we are receiving a dividend that will be able to tide us over? So for me, the financial situation is dire for many law firms, because many law firms are run by sole practitioners. Many law firms are small to medium-sized law firms. The larger law firms may have been more well prepared in terms of the structure of the business. But of course, we are hurting because even our own clients are hurting. Even those who have clients and unpaid fee notes, we are having to hold on to those fee notes because our clients are unable to pay. So it is a situation that is affecting us across the board, whichever way you look at it. And we have to quickly, structure our law firms for the long term. So this situation where you have the Sakaja bill that is talking about employees not being sacked or coerced to take a pay cut, and we are being told to send them on unpaid leave. It may cushion us from paying them now, but the fact of the matter is that these people have families, as do we, and we have overheads. The rent will still become due when all this is over, even if we're not paying. So we need to quickly look at how we can cushion our law firms in the future, because this is something that was completely unexpected. Those who are already in SACCOs may be able to access some financing. The banks right now, they're really giving people a tough time in terms of screening. Some have been able to restructure their facilities with the banks. But I think for us, we need a quick intervention in terms of how do we cushion our law firms for the future. But for now, we'll just have to bite the bullet and discuss with our employees, and perhaps even start reducing how much we're paying them, so that we can sustain them for a longer period, as opposed to sending them on unpaid leave from right this second. If we have digitized our firms prior to this, then you have an advantage. But if you've not been able to digitize, now is the time to do it. I would say that is where we should be investing in, because then you'll also be able to access your files, just the basic things. You'll be able to access your files, you'll be able to access your clients can access you remotely without you having to go physically to the office. Number two, it will enable you to work from anywhere. For example, if you are caught out in the curfew and you are not, if you ordinarily practice in Nairobi, but you are caught out, then you'd still be able to work. So still back to the other sectors that offer legal services, my advice to the government is that all this should be quickly put online. I see there's a task force that was put up by the CS of ICT, Joe Musheru. The chair, I believe, is a member of the Law Society of Kenya, but we need to be able to give our views to that committee so that we ensure and we fight for the judiciary to actually get money to be able to roll out on this digital journey that they're talking about, because I know for sure many of the courts across the country have been really affected.
That's a very good observation, and I can see some of the questions that the attendees are posting is that we want to understand what is this business culture, what is this continuity plan that you're talking about, and keeping that in mind, I'd just like Linda to just chip in here a bit in terms of now that we are here, what are some of the ways that what are some of the technologies that we have available to us to enable us to shift our practice, to enable us work from home, you know, be able to catch up with the world out there, the new areas of practice. Please tell us, Linda, in your experience, how you can advise law firms to think about embracing this new change that has come in. So over to you, Linda.
Okay. Thank you so much, and thanks, Maria. I think it was very insightful. Welcome to the Lawyers Hub, and we are happy to have you guys. I just want to say, how do law firms quickly, you know, either innovate or take up technologies? My first advice would be to, you know, change the software rather than the hardware first. That as an individual, you take up, rather than take up and buy technology products to use, that you could actually consider changing your mindset and your whole being first. And this involves one, can you diversify your thinking, quickly reorganize your firm to realize that whatever used to work actually 4 weeks ago does not work anymore. So what do you do in that particular position when you discover it's actually not working? If you've read the book, Who Moved My Cheese, I loved that book. It says that some people...
It's a very small book, but very important.
Yeah, it's so small, but it just says when you realize the cheese has moved, you quickly reorganize and say, you know what, where did the cheese move to? Why did it move? How can we prevent this cheese from moving again? Rather than keep crying and go to a corner and say, oh no, judiciary, look at the technology. You know, we keep complaining, but then you can sit down and quickly re-strategize and say, whatever we had planned for is not working. And it's not working because a pandemic hasn't happened since 1920. And so that means that truly and surely, not many of us were prepared for that. Even for the world superpowers, they were not prepared for this particular, you know, time. And so how do we make things differently? You take stock and say, okay, one, can we diversify as a firm? By diversifying would be first maybe trying from your client portfolio. If you realize you don't have business now, some big firms have a lot of business right now. Why do they have a lot of business? And I've been talking to a few partners from the big firms, and this is what they said. We don't just depend on the local clients. They need to look at, you need to look at other clients, other jurisdictions, for example. For example, Germany is shut down now, but people are still doing business. You still have people from the EU asking for, you know, advisories around data protection in Africa. So how do you then, how do you look at, you know, such opportunities rather than everyone that you represent? You know, maybe your farm is just a purely running down, you know, farm. And therefore now nobody's traveling, nobody's leaving their houses, fuel prices have gone down. And so you do not have any other, you know, income streams. I suggest that you diversify your client portfolio and also diversify your income streams. If you're doing, because most lawyers just, you know, we wake up and we go to court and we are paid for appearances, but you actually haven't productized our advice. Because there are people who don't charge, there are people who charge per hour, there are people who charge per appearance, and there are people who charge per product, that if we give you this legal advisory, this is how it's going to look like. And so we've seen through the technologies that we now have, you know, people offering like affidavits.co.ke, formsonline.co.ke, people are actually saying, I'm going to productize my legal advice so that it's no longer just an individual, but you are automating income streams. So I think we need to think through that, diversify your client base. It doesn't have to be just your Kenyan friends who are your clients. If Kenya goes down, your entire law firm goes down. You just don't have to have, I sit on panels, like you say, what, our firm sits on panels in banks. And so if banks shut down, your entire income stream is gone down. So even if you decide to do just one area of practice, for example, you need to diversify your client base. The other thing I'd say maybe in conclusion is regarding technologies to use. We have free technologies that right now people can use even for law firms.
Yes.
One of
Sorry, Linda, we look.
Reorganize your clients to schedule meetings. We're still able to. Okay. Can you hear me?
Sorry. Yes, we can hear you. Just begin from where you were talking about the.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Start from where you were talking about the technologies that lawyers can use to cope with this situation. Yeah, so start from.
Very.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, so we have free technologies that lawyers can use, but I also want to advise that most of the free technologies do not actually have better features. For example, we're using Zoom now. If you're using the free Zoom that you pay for, the truth is this: you don't get as many features as you can. You can play around with some certain products. So you need to consider technology like a new member of staff that is going to help you, figure out your scheduling. For example, I personally use Calendly to schedule, so that you stop, doing the back and forth with clients. Like, hey, utakuwa saa ngapi? When do we get you? Can we set up a meeting? So you spend a whole day planning a 30-minute meeting, when Calendly.com can just help you send somebody a link and tell them, these are my available timings. You pick a time. So you can use something like that. Two, we see another free product that you can use is like Google Drive. If you're using, Google Docs, for example, we found it really useful for the team. People don't have to meet, but everybody sort of contributes to a document in real time that helps you, monitor the team. What are they doing? If you're looking for something to plan around your staff, you can use Monday.com. Monday.com is still, but it's useful to get people on board, your team on board working, and things like that. Locally, we have Patafile that have a product. I have used it before, and I think it's great. You can try Patafile to organize your team. You save your files on the cloud, and you don't have to move, the back and forth. We've had concerns around privacy issues that, of course, we must be aware of. I'd urge you to, take advice, especially on these products, not from vendors who are selling products, but people who actually genuinely are concerned about your privacy, because vendors will sell it to you and say, oh, it's good, it's a good product, but it's users that will give you referrals and say, you can use this and try that. But eventually, we need to change our mindset. When we change our mindset, we'll realize that we can actually, get new places. For example, we did a survey last week, and what we realized is that the lawyers who are in the big firms are not too affected, and then we realized the small firms are affected. So what do you do in this particular case? I read an interesting article that said this. They interviewed people who survived the depression in 2008, and also those who survived the pandemic. So they have a little bit of experience. Those are the old companies that are handed over from one generation to another. And this is what they said, that troubles like this offer opportunities for us to reinvent. And they said, I think about 4 or 3 things, and I'll talk about what I remember. One, they said that you must look at partnerships. What partnerships exist that you can quickly get together and do? For example, the reason why, I'll give an example, for example, ALN, or Kaplan or ENS, why do they do well? They are focusing on numbers. So rather than just get your own space where you are the clerk, you have a clerk, you have a secretary, you have, someone who makes your tea, just for one particular person, we need to think through, can we also have, lawyers coming in together and saying, we remain small, we will be defeated. Can we get together, 5 of us, and make a farm? This is the time to look for those strategic partnerships that will help. And for the older lawyers who do not understand what's happening, like we have experience, but we do not know how to use technologies. Can they already look at, can I get a strategic young lawyer who understands this technology, but I have the experience? And then we ran the farm. The other thing that they realized was the opportunities to buy, because the big farms are going to buy some small farms. For example, if I'm doing immigration law, which I do, people will realize, you know what, our farm actually does not do immigration law and we don't have the experience, but now there's money for it. Can you come in, be a partner, and run that particular department? So there will be a lot of acquisitions going on, which I think should happen within the legal sector. Please don't die brave. You know, sometimes we be cowards and we join up with others, and to ensure that we actually survive. Others you go cold alone. Many thoughts. I'm sorry for taking too long.
All right. Thank you so much, Linda, for those very short remarks. And I can see questions from the attendees about how are we going to get access to some of these resources? What are those technologies that we just mentioned? So we are going to share an email which will have all these resources that we are talking about. So if you have not yet registered with us or with Lawyers Hub or with Emerging Law Firms, just go to the chat and put your email, and we'll add you to the mailing list, so that by the time we are sending this info out, we'll be able to help you. So I can see Daniel has joined us, and I can see also Olivia. And before we go to Daniel and Olivia, there's one thing, Linda, that you've mentioned, that we have to mentally wrap our minds around this change. You know, the cheese has moved. In fact, they are saying that the world will never be the same again. There's gonna be BC and AC before COVID and after COVID. How people are going to do business, how people are going to be conducting meetings, how people are going to be paying for business, for transactions, it's gonna change totally. There's gonna be a whole new world after COVID. So the question is, and this is to Margaret, our clinical psychologist who has joined us today. And I'd like her just to help us understand what are the mental issues that come with COVID and how can we be able to cope with it. I read a research that was done by a UK firm last year that out of all the professions, lawyers are the most stressed. It's the most stressful profession to work in. So basically, we are saying lawyers are the most stressed professionals, and we are doing nothing about it. I don't think we've really captured that issue of mental health for lawyers. So Margaret, please help us understand, how do we, as a clinical psychologist, as somebody who has been at the front line, helping people at the quarantine centers, help us understand, as lawyers, how do we remain sane? We are used to, as Linda said, getting money, you know, every time. But now it's, yeah, some of us have to make serious decisions, letting go some stuff. The landlord is on our necks asking for money. We don't have the money. So help us. How do we deal with this on a mental basis? Margaret, over to you.
Thank you, Victor, for having me on this webinar. I appreciate it. And I think the starting point will be the research that you just talked about. There was one again done in 2019 in the UK, the Queen's University. And from that study, the findings are that 28% of the lawyers between the ages of 35 to 44 are highly stressed. And also what came out of that study is that the most stressed out lawyers are those who are within 1 year to 10 years of their practice. And
that is that.
Sorry?
You're talking about us, 1 to 10 years.
Yes, and I know the study talks about you, and we are talking about you. And then the study also goes further to say that these are more likely, you know, the 28%, and they talked about their stressed out, their daily stresses at work, and there are a couple of reasons that they gave to that. And then they also further went to say that these are more likely to suffer mental health issues than the lawyers above 45 and any other person in the legal system. And then there was still another study in 2018. And what is interesting about this study is that they said that 21% of the licensed employed attorneys, they qualify as problem drinkers. And then 28%, they have some level of depression, and 19% of them showed some level of anxiety symptoms. Now, both studies cite this as the reasons or the triggers to the mental health issues. One, they said it is lack of engaging in interesting work. And yet they're lawyers, they're qualified and they're licensed. And then the other one was that there are limited opportunities to grow among especially the young lawyers. And then they also cited the lack of a mentor. And I think what this forum is doing is trying to address to that issue. And then they also spoke about the issue of that the businesses are not thriving, because law firms are businesses, and they quoted the issue that it's not thriving. And then because they also talked about the lawyers in the private sector were getting paid higher, they had more money and remuneration, then one of the other triggers to depression and a problem drinking was as a result of limited opportunities for them to move into the private sector. And I want to imagine that is also a scenario that is happening even with the lawyers in Kenya today. So when you're talking about COVID and what's happening to all of us, COVID is like this cloud hovering over our heads. We don't see the way out. It is too dark and it just doesn't seem to disappear. It's forever just hanging around over our heads. So what does it do to us? One, because we don't see the end to it, it causes a lot of anxiety. Number two, it leaves us in a state of apprehension. You don't know how tomorrow is going to be like. You don't know what to expect tomorrow. We are not sure whether we are going to get a total lockdown. We don't know when we are going to bounce back to our normal schedule. So there is this sense of being helpless, being hopeless, feeling hopeless, loss of control, feeling defeated, and like you can't manage your own life. Sort of has been surrendered to a situation that you don't have control over. So you feel anxious. Some people get very agitated. When you're anxious, agitated, you can't settle down. Some people are likely to be very, very angry, the slightest thing. And I'm sure you've observed, even in the WhatsApp groups, someone posts something and someone just, gets very angry. Their response is like, wow, that's not worth it. It doesn't warrant that kind of a response. It's also because our patience and tolerance levels are really, really being tested, pushed to the limit by a situation where you have no control. When you're in that state, then it also impairs your ability to think critically and your ability for problem solving. This is what happens, Victor, when you're in this kind of a state. One, because of the anxiety level, our brain produces a hormone, the cortisol hormone, and cortisol is the hormone that is released in large quantities when you find yourself in a scary or traumatizing or frightening situation that keeps you on the edge. So when you have an overproduction of the cortisol, you're not settled at all. You're on your toes kind of a situation. When you're in that state, you can't settle. You can't think straight because our brain does not compete. When one part of the brain is overworking, then the others are slowed down so that then the system does not get overwhelmed. So when we have large cortisols being pumped into our system, then you can't sleep because your brain is on an alert mode. So it's very difficult for you to relax. And that is why around this time, it's very common to find a lot of people complaining about inability to fall asleep and also difficult staying asleep. And that will explain why you have a lot of people up until 1 a.m., not necessarily because they slept during the day or they slept in very late, but also because their system is not able to naturally go down and shut down getting ready for sleep because of the overproduction, because they are very, very anxious about it. The other thing that COVID has done is that with the social distancing is physical distancing, but it has resulted to social isolation. Would wake up under normal circumstances and go to work. When you're driving to work, you probably have given a lift to your neighbor or your spouse, and you have children you're dropping to school, or you're just hopping into an Uber and you have a conversation with the Uber guy, or you're even in a matatu and there's so much going on. And you get to the office, you have your colleagues around there, you go to court, you meet with your colleagues. There was a lot of interaction going on. You'd go out, clubs now are closed, even the golf clubs or the sports clubs where people would also go to socialize, those ones are closed. Families are no longer gathering together. You know, this is April, Easter just passed by. We didn't even notice there was Easter. And so there's a lot of social interaction that has been curtailed by COVID. We are human beings and we are social beings. Social beings because we like to interact with people. Now, what this has done to us is, because I can't hang out with my friends for coffee, because I'm not going to work and I'm not meeting people, my colleagues in the office or in court, people have been pushed to go back and to stay alone. And that's how the isolation is coming in. Now, it's worse for people who are single and living alone at home and locked down. You can't go out, you can't mingle. And then the fear with COVID that even going out there, even if you're going to a mall, you want to be out there for a very short time and come back because you just don't want to interact with people. Again, that leaves people lonely, extremely alone, and that has its own impact in the sense that it pushes people towards a depressive state. And that again, the social isolation can also explain why now we have more people resulting into alcohol and other substances. One, because alcohol now just seems to be like a partner that they have. And number two, it also looks like it's when I'm stressed up, I run into something that gives me comfort. And that explains now why we are seeing more people now having struggles with alcohol and other issues of substance use. Then the other thing that COVID has done, of course, there is the financial bit of it. Too much, we still have the normal bills. We have rent, we have internet, we have insurances, we have salaries that we need to pay because we haven't, quite let off some of these services that we were receiving when everything was normal. And then we also have people now who have been laid off, or some people have had their salaries reduced by about 50%. The salary has been reduced, but the bills are still there, intact. And the struggle of how are we going to make things work? How are we going to make ends meet? And these are some of the issues that a lot of people are struggling with right now. We're also struggling because then again, we are Africans and we live in communities and extended families. I mean, my parents still expect me to send them money for their upkeep at the end of the month. but they don't seem to appreciate that even my income has reduced. I still have to take care of their medical expenses back at home. That is notwithstanding the fact that I don't have as much, the money is not coming in as it used before. And when people have all these issues to deal with, then again, Victor, that explains why we are seeing the increase that we are seeing in the gender-based violence cases.
All right,
We are together.
Allow me to just cut you short and just help me understand. I know we've experienced a lot of challenges on the WhatsApp groups, interacting with other lawyers. We've seen even on Facebook the kind of comments that are flurry. How are you able to know whether someone, a colleague, is going through a difficult time? Maybe just in 2 minutes. How are you able to help them? How do you in fact know that someone is going through stress or depression, and how do you help them in this season? Maybe you can help us with that.
One, their language, whether it's spoken language or it's whether what they have written. You can tell someone who is depressed by their choice of words that they use. You can also tell by the responses that they give. Like, for example, if something didn't warrant the kind of response that the person give, then that is a telltale sign that either someone is reacting to the person who just made that post, or someone is dealing with something else. Number two, you can also tell because you know your family and you know your friends, you know your level of interaction that you have had with them. When you see someone is totally withdrawn, they're not even participating, they're not contributing, and this is not their usual self, then that is also something that you need to pay a lot of attention to.
Thank you so much, Margaret Njihia of Family Wellness. So please keep on sending your questions. We'll pick some of them so that we can answer them. You can answer them we can ask them on the chat. You can also ask them on YouTube, and then we're about just to wrap up with the panelists. Then we'll do a panel session so that way you can ask the questions and we can answer the best that we can. So I'd like now to turn our attention to Dr. Catherine Gahu, who's an expert on matters branding. So, Dr. Lawyers have been rendered, the comments that we're reading on social media is that lawyers have been rendered useless. They are not an essential service. That really hurt us. And what I'd like you to help us understand is, how can we as lawyers maintain our brand? Lawyers are supposed to be prestigious. Lawyers are supposed to be respected in society. But we feel that we are not respected in this season, and we feel that we can play an important role. So what are some of the things that we can do as lawyers to maintain our brand? Dr. over to you. You can unmute your microphone on your ends. Still unmuted. There you go. There you go. We can hear you now.
Okay, good. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I feel like I'm one of the most, I'm in the most difficult position in terms of responding to the issues around this crisis, because when you look at this crisis affects all of us. It really does not have, it does not seem to select. And regardless of your profession, like all the people in professional services are generally affected in different ways. So when I look at it, I think about lawyers. They've been affected in a similar way, maybe as my business, which is in marketing consultancy, has been affected, because the uncertainty that is coming with this COVID-19, not knowing when anything is going to be clear. We don't even know how long it will last. We don't know when we will be able to really have a normal day-to-day business. But I want to also say that we look at what is positive even in this crisis. For example, in our country, we can say if you are able to have 5 hours of work in the day, as opposed to a total lockdown, maybe right now we still have something positive. Because I was imagining if we had a complete lockdown, how much more difficult it would be. So I I'm always for looking for what is working and trying to multiply what is working. But from a marketing point of view, I remember the last time we engaged with this group, we talked about the fact that, okay, lawyers were not happy when I said that the legal services are perishable. It's unfortunate to say that again at this time, but in my service, the business I'm in as a consultant in marketing is also a perishable service. We say it's perishable because it's time-based, and it's a service you provide by using the time you have. And when that time is not utilized, it's not going to come back tomorrow. So if there is no demand for a period, during that period when there is no demand, or like the period like now, you have to think, how do I utilize my time? Because the biggest resource that a lawyer has is time. How do I utilize my time during this time so that I can get the opportunity to see a better day? And one of the things we are finding that we are all ending up having to review more than just our services. We are thinking finances, how to make sure that the little money you have is going to stretch longer, you know, how to balance the needs and to see what must I do and what don't I have to do. So I'm thinking from a marketing perspective, we need to look at the issue of COVID-19. Most of it is outside our control. So you need to think about how to balance your attention and focus on the things that are more within your control. That you'd spend a bit more time looking at what is within your control and a little less time on the things that you don't have control over. And if you take that approach, it means that you will have a bit of time to look at what you can do yourself, given your skills, your knowledge, and your networks. And this is a time to start broadening your perspective, reviewing your know-how, and seeing the things that you can be able to maximize on using the 80-20 rule, where you focus on what is within your control, what can you manage, and the like. Now, one of the things we say at this time, like we have found ourselves, all of us in the same crisis, we are all having to do these Zoom meetings, which we have not even learned how to maintain professional presence in these meetings. And I'm just thinking, if I'm dealing with a client, how do I manage myself to look professional, handle the meeting professionally, so that even that little opportunity can become a possibility in a reality. The other thing I'm looking at is, how do you maintain visibility? Because we are going to get back. This is going to be over, or as they say, it shall come to pass. Because it shall come to pass, you will see another better day. How do you maintain visibility with your clients, with your market, even at this time, so that when things get back to normal, you will actually have advantage? And one of the things we say is, this is not the time to lose touch with your clients. This is a time, although we've been told that we have to keep distance. In fact, I think they use the wrong word, because they say social distance. And in my view, what we've been asked to do is to keep physical distance. So we cannot physically be too close, but socially, we can use the many methods of communication to remain in touch. So you need to be in touch with your clients. You need to keep talking. It's not the time to go mere, as the young people say, missing in action on your clients. You need to engage them, keep talking to them, understanding their needs and their challenges in this time. Because what happens when there is a crisis? We run to lawyers. When there is a crisis, we actually think that we should go to lawyers, because we think lawyers have the solutions to the crisis we have. And so it's a time when lawyers must also start thinking, what are the unusual problems we are facing now? And how can I support my client at this time? Yesterday, I was talking to someone about how they are managing, and they told me about how one of the things they've done is to go back to their clients who they support as a consultant with crisis management, and refer them to something they were already working on or had already served in, and start to find an angle on how to manage the crisis of this time using that particular project that was already existing. Trying to find opportunities within existing projects, within existing work, and continuing to engage. Because if we stop engaging, it means you will wake up when it's all over. Again, the client will have found other people who are willing to engage and continue being of service to them even during this time. The other thing is it's also a time you can use to build your skills and to improve your capabilities, and even to validate your own capabilities. Because what's happening, because there isn't that much to do, you may, the little that come your way, you need to validate your relevance, your competence for a time such as this. And that means you review your profile, you go back to your profile and look, and now dig deeper and ask yourself, what are all the things I've done in my life? Not even necessarily with reference to your profession. You try and bring them to the profession to demonstrate greater value. So you find what are the strengths and skills you have and knowledge that when combined with your legal skills give you advantage and opportunity so that you can be able to serve in a different way than you would have served in the previous times. And particularly because people are looking upon you as lawyers to help them with the crisis, how can you restructure yourself and your profile so that you are able to see how to show them how to get over some of the legal and regulatory issues that are arising. I was looking also at some countries like even South Africa. They have passed so many laws to guide on how to handle this crisis. Because for many employers, for example,
Daktari, we've lost you a bit. I don't know whether you can hear me. We're trying to reach you. Let's wait and see whether we can be able to get her back.
new registration to find
all right, she's
opportunities.
back. Daktari, we lost you for a bit. Please start from the place where you talked about South Africa, the laws in South Africa. Start from there because we lost you for a moment.
Okay. I was talking about how I was seeing how South Africa has passed a lot of laws to respond to this COVID-19 period. In Kenya, we've also passed some, but maybe not so many. But that suggests a role for lawyers to help companies. For example, we are struggling with the question of how do you manage the labor issues during this time? A lawyer is a person in helping you address some of these issues. How about crisis communications? So we are looking, I'm looking at the possibility that a lawyer can reorganize themselves to have a role to play to help people navigate the legal challenges associated with this period, especially small businesses and other organizations. The other thing I talked about is how to use the time for learning. Many lawyers who may not have adopted technology, I know one of my colleagues talked about technology. How do we get to adopt technology at this time? How do we learn more about it? How do we position ourselves by creating content that we can share with our clients? So this is a time to build. You can say it's a time to build because you are free, you have the time, and maybe you don't have so much work. You can use it to even restructure your business, structure your work, see how you'll be operating in the future. And even as people are saying that you will not reduce, you have to reduce expenses at this time because there's no way you can continue operating on the same expenses during a time of crisis. So it's to look at how do I reorganize? How do I take time to restructure my business, to manage my client and remain visible with them, to show concern, to be empathetic to their issues and all that. And I think it's a challenging time, completely challenging, that I'm almost lost for words in terms of how do you really give somebody a very, very clear direction about what to do, because it's a challenging period, but we can use the time to build ourselves for the future days because it shall come to pass.
Yes, thank you so much, Daktari, for that. And I like what you've talked about. You've given us very good tips on how to handle the situation. I was listening to another webinar podcast, and the panelist there was saying that during this time of crisis, even bad news is good news. The worst thing that you can do as a lawyer is quiet, being quiet, not communicating with your clients, not necessarily to ask them for that fee note or to ask them for more work, but just to find out how are you doing. And I also like to say about cutting costs, and I'd like to just ask Daniel to talk to us about that maybe in 5 minutes because we are about to go to a panel session. Please keep on sending your questions. We're going to answer them shortly. And Olivia will also talk to us in 5 minutes also about a few things. So Daniel, tell us, how do we cut costs? What are the tips that you can give us that we can easily navigate through this financial crisis that we are facing as lawyers?
Okay, thank you very much, Victor. I'll be very quick. You say 5 minutes?
5 minutes.
I guess I can cover what I want to cover in 5 minutes, but I'll be very quick then.
All right.
Maybe by way of background, when you run a business,
yes,
you have to grapple with a lot of issues. Many of the issues are of a long-term nature and others of a short-term nature. For example, the sustainability of your business or the profitability are long-term aspects of the business. Now, the other aspects of the business that pertain to your survival, and one of them is cash flow. And that's what I'm really going to talk about, because without cash flow, you cannot you cannot stabilize situations. You need money to stabilize situations. So when you get into a crisis like this, and I can tell you I've been around for a long time, but I've not seen anything like it. When you get into a crisis like this, you need to think about what you have. You need to think about cash flow, especially. And cash flow will definitely be affected, and very adversely, because many people will not be willing to write checks at this time, because everybody wants to conserve whatever they have. Because in the case of the lawyers, maybe they're not going to be receiving any income for some time. During the crisis, they may not be receiving a lot of income, and they may not be getting cases determined in court. Some of you I know are not able to travel to go and hear cases in other counties. So that is all income being affected, and particularly cash flow. So if cases in court are not proceeding, you don't have any chance to get income in the near future. The prospects are very, very dim. And the worst thing about this is that nobody knows when the pandemic is going to end. Nobody knows whether we are looking at 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, 1 year. Nobody really knows. I know there has been a lot of speculation about the number of months. And only yesterday, I got an even bigger shock, because some people are saying there is almost definitely going to be a second wave, which may come around about October, November. This is coming from the US, but it's coming from fairly reliable sources. So we should know that this is a possibility. But as I say, nobody really knows. It is really just a lot of guessing. Now, in these circumstances, and I can tell you, we normally have enough problems without this kind of thing, the likely thing to happen is that a lot of people will panic. But this is the last thing you want to do. You don't want to panic, especially as it relates to managing your business, controlling your business, and making sure that the cash flow situation is sustained. So what should you do? And I'll be very quick here. One, sit with your accountant and take stock of what you have in terms of debtors and creditors. And debtors are those people who owe you money. Creditors are those people that you owe money. And you need to go through a process of prioritizing both the debtors and the creditors, i.e., which creditors do we need to pay? Margaret mentioned things like insurance, and insurance is really important, because you don't want a crisis at this time that causes you to cough out a lot of money because there has been a fire somewhere or somebody has fallen sick. So you must make sure that all your creditors that have items relating to critical matters are taken care of. So insurance is just an example. There will be others that you really must think about. There will be also, so you need to prioritize the creditors. Your debtors also need to be prioritized. The reason being, you need to know what business your debtors are in. These are the people who owe you money. Some of them will definitely not be able to pay you, not because they don't want to pay you, but because their businesses are badly, badly hit. I know some businesses in town that have just shut down. I think many of you know this. Restaurants, for example, and all the businesses in travel and the airlines. So if that's, sorry.
Go ahead.
If those are your customers, you need to know who is likely to pay you and who is not likely to pay you. Now, once you've taken stock of this situation, you then look at your reserves and also look at one other thing. How long can the reserves you have last you? Is it 3 months? Is it 5 months? What is it? How long can it last?
That's assuming you have some reserves, right?
That is assuming you have some reserves. Not all of us have reserves. But if you don't have reserves, it is even more important to go through this exercise because you must get some money from somewhere. So examine your debtors and creditors very carefully so that you see the people that you must pay. Suspend any non-essential expenses. For example, you might be building a house somewhere, just as an example, or you might be wanting to change your car, or you might be wanting to do something else of a long-term nature to buy a plot. If you have got any such projects, please suspend those because you can always come back to those if you can manage to keep your business going. So sorry, I keep hearing Victor.
Yes. Do you have one more minute?
I have 1 more minute.
Yes.
I was going to say a couple of things, but maybe I can do them during the Q&A. For example, you need to go to your bank. If you have a loan with a bank, you need to go to your bank and talk to them about it because you may not be able to meet the repayments. So you need to go and talk to them about it. You may need to go and talk to them about the possibility of getting an overdraft to tide you over the period. But as I say, it is important that you talk to as many of the people you owe money as possible. Don't just not pay. Talk to them and see if you can get into arrangements with them for delayed payments, and that does work. The banks at the moment are very keen to show compassion because they also realize that when this whole crisis is over, they'll need you. So if they don't show you that that love and compassion, then you are more likely to ditch them when the crisis is over. So I see, Victor, you want me to finish, but I'm quite happy to answer some questions, especially the questions that you have received that are of a financial nature.
All right. So thank you so much, Mr. Daniel Kanyi, for painting that picture for us. And at least we now understand that there are a few things that we can do in the very short term to mitigate our financial issues. Of course, it's good business practice to have a reserve, maybe they say even up to 6 months of what your current expenses are. But if not, you can still approach your circle, approach your bank and see how we can be able to mitigate the situation. So over to Olivia. Olivia will just talk to us slightly about, and just expounding on what Dr. Catherine Gawa talked about, how do we continue with our business development? I see you in a very good scenery.
Oh my goodness. I am in Mashinani like Alumasta. So the only place I could get the best internet to be able to talk to everyone properly was out here. But I'm glad that Enrica doesn't mind the landscape.
All right. So talk to us about how we can continue with business development during this COVID period.
Okay, so fantastic. So I think first of all, the best premise I want to give is related to two things that some other panelists have talked about. And I think they kind of prime what I want to talk about. So number one, when Margaret talked about just the general energy that we may be feeling, someone, I think Linda at the beginning talked about, what the big farms are currently doing to stay afloat. Now, as someone who's also worked in big farms and helped them grow, I've also worked with some big farms who are when they have been a time of crisis, not COVID-19, but I have been, part of teams where you're trying to turn around one of those big law firms and they're going through a tough situation. And so,
Correct.
though what we may be going is uncharted territory because COVID-19 is something none of us have gone through, I want to encourage all of us who run smaller and mid-sized firms that, don't think that walking through these challenges is only, unique to you. And so some of the tips that I'm going to be sharing from my own experience, but also I've tried to customize them to make sense for you guys based on your budget right now and where we are. The first thing that you want to be very wary about when you're dealing with your business development at the moment is your productivity. Because of many other distractions we may be going through and mental health issues, I want you to approach your business development one day at a time. If you had a 1-year strategy for 2020, you came for leap and you're in the middle of implementing Baobab strategy, this may be the time to freeze some things. And in the meantime, I'm going to tell you, as Daniel said, that the situation is very uncertain. So I want to tell you, right now is not the time to have a long-term BD plan. Right now, you want to have a week to week, a 1 day by 1 day plan as we see how things are unfolding. We are dealing with a crisis, so you don't want to have a cookie cutter strategy, the one that you started having, post sleep or at the start of January. So that's the first thing I want to tell you. You want to take your strategy 1 day at a time. The worst thing you can do right now is be in a state of paralysis. And I think Catherine talked about this a bit. The worst thing you can do is based on what you're seeing in the business daily and in the news, everything that's even going on WhatsApp groups, it's very easy for you to shrink and say, I'll stay in my PJs. I'll, I can't even deal with it. This is too much. My prospects have run away. All the leads I've been working on, I don't even have the money to sustain the practice. It's very easy for you to just go into total shutdown. I want to encourage you not to do that. And I'll tell you why you shouldn't do that. Number one, you don't want to lose top of mind awareness. In a world where there's a lot of anxiety, there are a lot of problems. We still need lawyers, and I know lawyers have taken quite a bashing, and people saying, "Oh, we don't need law. Oh, they are not essential services." Lawyers provide solutions. Lawyers help people find answers, and right now the world needs a lot of answers in so many other areas. What you want to be doing right now is building empathy and trying to understand, like Catherine said, I already have this knowledge, I already have this experience. Now what gap can I fill? Catherine gave such a great example of a company that has pivoted by already using knowledge that they had, and they try to now adapt it to what the clients are actually doing. And that's what I want to encourage you to do. So number one, as tempting as it is, don't take your business development and your business into lockdown and wait for this thing to tide over. That would be the worst strategy at all. So don't get paralyzed. Let's start doing something. And I'll tell you what you could at least do in this situation. The one thing you want to do is to be a compassionate leader, a compassionate partner, a compassionate leader of your business as you're leading your business development strategy. A lot of us may have sent some generic emails a few weeks ago, a month or so ago, that your business is shutting down, that this is how you're going to be communicating, this is where your staff are going to be working on files from. But I know that very few of us actually took the time to send personalized emails to our top clients. Everyone is talking about the fact that there's not going to be a lot of business. But we say in business development, there are 4 parts of business development. So there's attraction. For those of you who attended LEAP, there's attraction, there's winning work, there is converting the work, there's retention. So what you want to do right now, based on what we call the Pareto principle, is to talk about, what do I have in hand? Who are the people who already know me? Forget fighting in a market where everyone is saying, it's hard for us to even invest in a lawyer. We don't know you. It's tougher to convert someone who's never heard of you. What I want to encourage you to focus on now is to retain the people who have worked with you, who like you. And like Catherine said, start to explore, can we do something called an upsell or a downsell? An upsell is they were already working with you on something, or they worked with you in the past, but now you're trying to see, is there an additional service, an additional legal opinion? Is there a question that they need answered that may actually, I could fill the gap for them? It may not be as valuable as it was, pre-COVID-19, but it's still something, and my business is still getting by. So you want to look for those opportunities. Now, how do you look for those opportunities? Those opportunities come when you have client conversations. So I want to
All right.
encourage you to check out who are your top clients, who are your top referral sources. For some of you, it could be colleagues. For some of you, it could even be friends and family. I want to start encouraging you to stop hiding behind an autoresponder, to start sending personalized emails and finding one by one how your top clients, how your top referral sources are doing. Tell them what's going on in your practice. Send them a link to something that they would find interesting or informative. Be compassionate and try to meet their needs now, and just keep adding value where they are and maintain that top of mind awareness, but definitely don't become obscure. So I want to give you a challenge that if you could, even in the next 20 days, come up with a list of 20 contacts who already know you, like you, don't need any introduction, they already know you for your work, and start sending personalized emails, not to ask for anything, but asking them how you can help, finding out how they are, just not assuming that everything is going okay with them, or at the end of all of this, you'll get in touch. So I want to encourage you to be proactive. I want to encourage you to build relationships, and I want to encourage you to build top of mind awareness. Another thing that's going on right now, again, though the profession has been criticized, is that there's a huge gap for content. Now they're saying that the online world has gone crazy because the people are working from home. We are on our devices trying to catch up with the news. We are on our devices trying to find out, for instance, what's going on with other companies. So there's a huge opportunity. Sorry, Victor, do you want me to finish up?
Yes, please wrap up so that we can go to
No,
the question and
no
answer
problem.
session. Yes.
So look for opportunities to create content. So we're already in so many WhatsApp groups. One thing is just to ask, even family groups, friends, and other people, maybe an old boys group you are in, start mining and asking, what questions do you guys have around maybe this area that I specialize in? Start finding out from there, create content. But so many people are doing things like we're doing, like webinars, but do different things like videos and infographics. And one more thing you want to maintain during this time to maintain client relationships is just to be very careful about your responsiveness. In a world where there's a lot of unreliability, the last thing you want to do is to be unpredictable. I mean, network, power cuts, homeschooling, so many things can disrupt that. One thing you can do is just to set up a simple autoresponder to give clients a realistic expectation of when they can hear from you, and have a responsiveness policy that you and your team are there to make sure that you guys stay responsive. Victor, in those 5 minutes, that's what I'm able to do. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And I like what you said, because what we do during this season, how we handle our clients, will determine whether they will stay with us or not after this period. So we need to be very careful how we handle them. Let's call our clients, let's talk to them, let's keep in touch, not necessarily just to ask for business or to just to find out how they are doing. So now, thank you so much for those useful thoughts. So we'll quickly go to the question and answer session. Linda, you'll help me with this. Linda, you're there? You'll help me with this. So I can see some questions. One of the questions is by, you're there, Linda?
Yeah.
All right. So you can help me with the question and answer session.
Okay.
So the first question we'll go to is Dennis Magari. Let me see. Yes.
Yeah.
So Dennis Magari is talking about technology, and he says that we have an issue with reciprocity and preparations by counterparts. So, for example, talking about somebody is using a MacBook, and then you're on a Windows platform. So, how do we deal with incompatible technologies? Are there technologies that are open source that can be able to help us? So, maybe Linda, you can just take that one quickly.
Okay. I think that sort of reminds me of a conversation we had this week around, let's say, the technologies that, for example, judiciary is using, which may be different from what we are using. If you notice, for example, for the hearings, we've had most of the judges use Zoom, and then the Chief Justice indicated a few days ago that they're going to be using, Microsoft Teams, because Microsoft offered that to them. So in this particular case, we're going to have a lot of people trying to figure out, which one has the best user experience, what exactly would I use? But I want to say, whatever sort of fast laptop or gadget you choose, it needs to be compatible with your phone. For example, some people have iPhones and they have a MacBook. And so you're able to quickly save stuff just on the cloud without having to change devices or move things, from one device to another. So that's one. But regarding colleagues, I'm really trying to figure out what we could do right now about other people, which I haven't figured out, but I figured out that myself, there are things I can do differently in this particular pandemic, So I'd want to first urge you at individual level to invest in technologies and to invest in good gadgets that have very good space, that as a lawyer, you don't have to delete everything from your phone just because you don't have space. When you have money, please, the next time after the pandemic and you have lots of money, don't drink it. Buy a nice gadget that has space.
Yeah.
If there's no space, you can pay for, even for Google, for your Gmail, you can upgrade your space, for example, on the cloud, which is really simple. It's, I think, 100 bob a month. That, there's a package for 100 bob a month that you can pay for. If you have an iPhone, a MacBook, you can already do some stuff. I think we pay about maybe 700 shillings a month, which these things look like, really cheap. But sometimes we have other competing interests. And Victor wanted to talk about the team. Right now, we need to be really interested in keeping our team safe, even safe, because we'll have some people, the people who are now prying and hacking organizations. As you well know, the World Health Organization was, hacked a day or two ago, and emails revealed. And so at this particular point, even about the tech, you need to be wary as a lawyer that you still owe your clients a duty of confidentiality. And so as the doctor was saying, that you need this cross collaboration and see what can you keep in place at this particular point. And then allow me just to say one thing. As we talk about content creation, from what Olivia has said, I'd want for you in your free time to sit and watch the, just do an analysis of the big firms, what they have done in the past 4 weeks. And I want to give you an example. ALN has written to the Attorney General, Anjaroala, given them recommendations around small businesses, how, what government needs to do and policy responses that government needs to put in place. I want to assure you that those comments are not for the AG. Those comments are for their clients, because they will indicate to their clients that we advise the government of Kenya on how they need to engage around SMEs. So when you talk about content, you may be offering this content, but it's not without a purpose. It's actually, adding some feather to your cap to indicate that I can do this long term, and this is what we did in this particular crisis. ENS as well, just a newly formed firm, already wrote an advisory. That's what they are doing. And so wherever you, and also I want to say, Aluso, I saw the Kazi LLP. They wrote out an advisory and shared it on social media. So people are wondering what to do in this point. And if as a lawyer, you do not take that thought leadership and say, you know what, we're going to offer alternative thinking on what needs to happen at this particular point. Finally, please restructure your team. If you had, if for example, you had a secretary who used to sit, and welcome people, the first thought should be, don't lay them off. The first point should be, can I reallocate things? Because now we are on a digital platform, and maybe they need to be in charge of automating phone calls. Because if you're not taking phone calls anymore, I'm sorry, but the people are still picking their calls, and they have considered their website like their waiting area. So you need to take time and think through, how much do I need maybe to do a website at this particular point? Can people still find me? Can I look at SEO and ensure that I come up fast on a Google search? Because now everybody the game has shifted to a lot of digital devices. If you've seen what the artists have done, for example, Nyashinsky, the DJs, I keep seeing a lot of DJs doing Instagram Live. And people pay them, not a particular fee, but people pay them just to, like they tip them online. So you need to figure out how to quickly reinvent to ensure that can happen to you as well. So I think realign your team, look at who is doing what. If there was an intern, maybe the intern is now even who is good in technology. Maybe they're now even more important than an associate. Can you see how you give this intern new roles that would ensure that they have meaningful work, they're managing your social media, they're responding to posts on social media, and they're looking at new areas, like people are struggling with rent. They don't know what to do around rent. They're also struggling with they're also struggling with, employment issues. Are you advising people on Facebook, or you're just, on lawyer WhatsApp groups? We're there, we are complaining, we're talking, but we're actually talking to ourselves, and it's an echo chamber. You need to get other forums where you're actually advising people and speaking to them. When business comes back up, they will give you your business.
I like the comments that I'm seeing. I thank you, Linda, for those comments. Thank you. I'm liking the conversation that is ongoing online, and I can see some comments from some of the participants here. And a question here that I can see on YouTube, where we have about 50 viewers. This is to Mr. Daniel Kani. How do you grow your reserve funds to avoid depletion and to have a sustainable or practical season of COVID-19? So maybe, Daniel, you can talk to us about that. So we are going to take about 3 more questions, and then we can wrap up for the day. So Daniel, please answer that question, and then we'll come back to 1 or 2 questions so that we can close. All right, Daniel, just unmute your microphone on your side. Okay.
Yes, thank you, Victor. So the question is, how do you grow your reserves?
Yes. Number 1, I think you need to start from why do you need a reserve? And then how do you grow it in this season? So I think that would be a good question to answer.
Well, first of all, you don't grow it in this season. But the reason you need reserves comes from financial planning that you do each year or every time you do your business planning. So you need to know that your business will suffer shocks from time to time. And therefore, you can't really be working on the basis of no reserves at all. Now, the reserves don't have to be cash lying somewhere. It could be an overdraft facility arranged with a bank, so that in case there are issues, or in case you need to be tided over a period, then you just go to the bank and you have this facility available, because those facilities take time to arrange, and you don't want to be arranging them when the crisis has already hit. So that's the thing I talked. That's what I meant with on that. Now the other thing is, when you pay, I know some people may have paid for holidays, deposits, or they may have paid for tickets. They need to probably cancel them and try and get a refund for the simple reason that you don't know whether the particular thing you have paid for will happen or not. So you may or may not get the refund, but at least ask for it. At least ask for it. Try and build your cash to take you over this period. And also, when COVID-19 passes, you need money to get to spring back into business. Yeah.
All right.
So it's all about, Victor, it's all about having a good control and a better control of your cash flow. And this is part of the reason why financial planning needs to be a continuous process.
All right. All right. All right. So thank you so much for those comments, Daniel. Thank you for also Aluso for commenting on the chat and just adding some valuable information there. For example, MailChimp is giving away free domain names for 5 years in just helping small farms and businesses get online quickly. So if you're not online, if you don't have a website, if you don't have a personalized email address, please, this is the time to go online and create your brand online. So Olivia, please share with us some of the resources that you have and that you will share with teams on members here, how they can navigate through this COVID season. Olivia, if you are there, if you can hear me, just quickly add on to that. All right, go ahead, Olivia.
So fantastic. I want to add to what Linda has said. It's true. The big firms have been doing content creation in a very creative way, and as we are saying, that's one way to build your top of mind awareness. But guys, you don't need a big budget to do some of these things. So in addition to some of the apps that Linda has been talking about, one of the best tools I would recommend for you for content marketing would be Canva. Canva is a very versatile tool, and for virtually for $0 or to $9 or $10, you can create some really good graphics to go with your content marketing for different platforms. So Canva is one. One thing I want to also encourage you is to move away from long form articles and use things like videos and infographics. To create video, another tool you could use is Animoto. So that's another one. As Linda has said, practice as we know it has changed. And because it's been disrupted, one thing is how you receive your clients when they come in. I want to encourage you to think about investing. It's not expensive. Don't be afraid. I know right now there's a problem with, managing our cash flow, but there are tools like Dopsado and 17 Hats. These tools can actually help you to manage a client from sending a letter of engagement, doing client intake, managing your client contacts, almost sort of like an electronic VA, trying to manage how you receive clients. They can even help you to schedule your calendar. So if you're like me, you're homeschooling, you're still trying to juggle so many things, one thing you can use is some of these tools also have online scheduling tools that are inbuilt in English. And to make it very simple, what you do is you just put in your schedule. You say when you're available for client meetings or client talks. Elvis and everyone else, I actually have a free toolkit right now on the site with some of these resources just right on our homepage. A few weeks ago, we created a toolkit just for lawyers, wellness, to help with things, some of these apps that I'm talking about here, to help you with your productivity and to manage your practice, to do content creation, www.farmgrown.com. You can go there and there's actually a free download. And just for this COVID-19 period, we're calling it the Grind and Grind Toolkit. So we're hoping that it will make you work faster and better on your business development. But I've also included there personally some of the tools I'm using to stay productive and healthy. So some of the apps I've mentioned, Dupsado, 17 Hats, Canva, Slack is another very good tool. As Linda was talking about, internal communication for those of you who have teams is critical right now. And I want to encourage you to avoid using WhatsApp for work-related matters. Though we are asking you to use technology, as some of the other panelists have said, I want you to be alive to the fact that there's also a huge risk of cybersecurity at the moment. So to guard client confidentiality, to protect your data, your office data, even your employees' data. Right now, I want to encourage you, where possible, to use tools that can safeguard it. So I wouldn't go for WhatsApp. I would try to use tools that are more, that are created for, work communities and work teams like Slack. So Elvis and everyone else, some of these tools that I'm mentioning, again, you can find them on our website, www.farmgrown.com. You can download it there. Another great tool, because some of you may not have websites and it may be so intimidating to create a website right now. Guys, LinkedIn Pulse has a great content creation and production tool. LinkedIn Pulse is the free publishing tool for LinkedIn. So if you have a LinkedIn account, don't stress over now creating a site. Just on LinkedIn Pulse, they can help you do that. When Linda talked about search engine optimization, let me give you a small shortcut. If you want to know what words to include in the content that you're creating right now, just go to Google on your phone, on your tablet, or whatever. Start typing out something regard to your area or to the industry you want to write about. Google will start giving you suggestions. Another thing, and I talked about it when we had the LEAP conference, for those of you who attended, right now is the time to use Google Alerts. Right now is the time, if you want to stand out, don't be a generalist. If you want to be, someone was asking us, should I specialize in this? And I tell you, right now is the time to stand out. Yes, COVID-19 and so many other issues like contractual issues will be hitting different sectors. But what you want to do is to specialize. Say I work with SACCOs and I'll write content in regard to SACCOs consistently for the next couple of weeks. Or I want to focus on higher education public institutions. I want to focus on this type of mid-sized industry in this sector. So I want to ask you to niche your content, because as it is, other people are writing very general content. So to try stand out, remember what we talked about, which was copper. And I think Catherine also talked about this. But even when you're creating content, please guys, I want to remind you to put your best foot forward. Be consistent, make sure the quality is good. And yeah, of course, more resources on the site. Thank you, Mulindi.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Olivia. I think you've done a good job at helping law firms grow. And I'm sure when we are going to share all the resources that we've been talking about, and all the panelists will share their contacts so that we can be able to approach them.
Yeah.
Now, to conclude, I like some of the comments. Kelly did one of the good comments on the chat, and he says that law firms are businesses and they should take time and approach banks or SACCOs. We have LSK SACCO, we have Sharia SACCO. You can approach them for some sort of loan during this time so that you can stay afloat. Enrica Dulo, I see your comment there that your take home is that don't die brave. Yeah.
Yes.
Be
Yes,
vulnerable,
Enrica.
talk,
Mm.
have some of these sessions. Some of these sessions enable us to vent out our challenges, and let's help each other out. So in conclusion, I'd like to just ask the panelists to give us their take home. I'll start with Maria. And Maria, there's a gentleman, I think it's not a gentleman, but a lady. Just scroll to the end there so that I can see the comments. This, yes, yes, down there, yes. So this is why Rimu Mureithi, she's asking, is this a reality check for small farms? Yeah, is it all doom and gloom? Because most small farms do not have a reserve fund. We are barely, living check to check, paycheck to paycheck, client to client. We are, some of our practices are really skewed on one direction. It's just litigation, just running down. If you close, let's say, a court in, what is that? There are courts which specifically just do running down. If you close that court, then no business. So is it all doom and gloom? Is the society now looking into how the same farms can get reprieve and either get outright assistance? What do you have to say about that as you wrap up, as you give your final parting shot? Please help Wairimu understand that maybe it is not all doom and gloom. Maybe there's a silver lining in the cloud. All right, Maria.
Yeah,
all
so
right.
yeah, Wairimo, thanks, Victor. Wairimo, I don't think it's all doom and gloom. Actually, if you're a small farm, it means then you don't have bigger problems such as a lot of staff to have this conversation, especially about pay cuts. I'm seeing a lot of the large farms advising for pay cuts between 10 to 20%, others are progressing it to 30%. Those are difficult conversations to have, and it means you have a bigger wage bill to deal with. There's a bigger nightmare when you're a bigger farm. So the smaller farms, obviously, you still have the problems, but in terms of managing third parties or your employees, and it's not that, that much more difficult for you. It might be easier for you to bounce back. What I'd say is that it's an opportunity now for the small law firms, and I believe anyone who was admitted to the bar in the last 5 or so years has an advantage over the likes of us who admitted earlier, who are having to digitize their offices later in the day when they're, you have physical files and all these things. And you are able to start with basic tools that we didn't have in the beginning. So if you haven't yet digitized, do so now. Invest in that. If you're getting any funding to improve on your farm, do so now. There are many platforms which are available. There are companies which are actually offering digitization services. They'll charge you a fee per file. They will also put you on a farm management software manual that you can use or program that you can use, and they'll charge you a fee per month. The ones that I would recommend are Bloomfire Technology, and they understand how to do it. I've used them before. They're quite good. And there are others. I would encourage, of course, the Law Society to put out a call for expression of interest where they will invite farms, give a criteria for vetting these farms, so that then we are going to go to the LSK to look at the resources that are available in terms of the farms that offer these services. I would also encourage that we invest in diversity, however small we are, and this conversation that Olivia and Catherine have had about branding, even if you're the one who's branding the farm yourself through LinkedIn or through Facebook or these other platforms, invest in the diversity that comes with it. Look at your skill sets, look at investing in technology as a staff member, the way Linda said. I'd also say that this is the time to put in relevant work policies. Now, as small, medium-sized farms, many that don't have policies, now is the time to look at those policies and even factor in flexi hours. Because of this COVID, we've been forced to work from home. So it is possible to actually have flexi hours and not have members of staff coming to the office daily. I think we can invest in that and get people to learn how to, work from home. It means that you retain your clients, you'll retain your staff more than have them leave your farm, and have incentives that are driven towards bonuses for work done or on hours put in per client or per file. Then this will motivate people. And creating synergies also is very important. The Emerging Law Firms is a network that advocates should take advantage of, especially the small to medium-sized law firms, so that you can use referencing, cross-referencing, leverage on your strengths, the strengths of the other firm, what the other firm is doing, what you don't have, invest in those. So I've had occasion through the Commonwealth Lawyers Association to look at what the other jurisdictions are doing. They're faced with similar situations such as ours, but they have quickly been able to jump onto technology, perhaps because they had already invested in it. And for me, I'd say this is a blank check we've been given in terms of actually getting on board the digital transformation of our law firms. And it's not all doom and gloom. I tell you, this is an opportunity. We have to seize it. Let us not get depressed about it. Let's just start with however small it is. Start even from LinkedIn. Just start from there, and we'll be able to get over this pandemic. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Maria. So what Maria is telling us is carpe diem. Yeah. Seize the day, seize the moment, grow from. Yes. Dr. Catherine Gahu, what is your parting shot in just maybe a minute as we are about to wrap up because of time? Tell us, is it doom and gloom? Is it a silver lining? Do we have better days ahead of us? What do we do? Tell us.
For me, I'm an optimist. So I always believe that good things are going to come. So I know that it will pass. And my parting shot is really to emphasize the need for maintaining visibility, be accessible, maintain your professional presence. Maintain professional presence. Yes. Because at this time, especially during this time where we are doing a lot of these meetings of Zoom and working with clients offline, we need to remember that you must still come across as professional for your client. You must be empathetic because everybody is having a challenge. So as you work, be considerate and show empathy, collaborate, and build consistency. And most of all, use the time to keep learning. And as you learn, take action to apply what you learn. And like I always say, knowledge without action is dead. So use the knowledge you've learned even today to take some action that will help you build momentum to achieve what you want to achieve. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. I like that. Now is not the time to sob and say, oh, we're losing money, we're losing clients, we don't have money for rent. Now is the time to say, what can I do? What can I do now? And this is one of those forums that we are helping you just to see the possibilities. And I like the comments so far that people are saying this is insightful, that they're getting hope for tomorrow. And this is what you're saying. So Margaret, tell us, how do we stay mentally sane? How do we keep our minds focused on the big picture? Just as you close in about a minute, Margaret.
One of the things.
Yes.
Okay, sorry. One of the things I would like to say is please don't beat yourself too hard and don't expect.
It's not your fault.
Yeah. Yes, don't beat yourself too hard when you're not performing the way you used to perform a month ago. This is what you have is a normal reaction to an abnormal situation. So don't go ahead and beat yourself a bit too hard. Number two, what would help us is just accepting the situation and the reality as it is. and just having the hope that these two shall come to pass. The other thing that would help is even in the circumstance, let's try and have some schedule that will see us through the day. And the schedule is just not to keep us busy, but it is to keep us meaningfully occupied, doing that which we can do in the circumstance, but in a meaningful way. And then, of course, also remember just every day, note down something, maintain a gratitude journal. Even in the circumstance, you still have so much to be grateful about. Let's just not look at things from like it's all gone and lost. We still have quite a lot, and very many things to be grateful about. And above everything else, if you feel very overwhelmed, please talk to someone.
So we'll be sharing contacts of all the panelists. If you want someone to talk to, please feel free to call any of them. And I'm sure we'll help each other go through this and we'll make it to the end. Daniel, parting shots. Go ahead, Daniel, we can hear you.
Yeah, my parting shot is that one needs to maintain very good relationships with all sources of finance, all sources of funds and credit. Reason being that if you don't maintain your creditworthiness at a high level, when a crisis hits, then you find it that much more difficult to go and convince people that they should show compassion to you. For example, if you don't pay your rent in time, or if you're a problem payer, then the landlord is unlikely to listen to you when you go and say, "Oh, I can't pay because of COVID-19," because he knows that you have not been paying anyway in time. The banks also like you to visit. They love visits from their clients and chit chat them and let them understand that you do need their services. And then, of course, somebody mentioned SACCOs and other sources of finance. It is very important that you maintain a high level of creditworthiness and respect credit. Don't be listed on a credit bureau, so that when this kind of thing happens, you have a recourse. And many people are willing to pay to lend you money because that is the business they're in.
Thank you so much, Daniel, for that insight. So we'll finish with Linda, and before we go to Linda, just quickly ask Olivia to give her parting shot. Then we'll go to Linda, and then we'll close for the day. So Olivia, over to you. Your parting shot. Just go ahead. We can hear you.
Yeah, my parting shot today for you, first of all, is I want you to know that the ELF community cares for you. And I hope we will still continue to be able to support you through this. And that's why we were doing this. Number two, I want you to take one day at a time. And remember what I've said, that shelve the long-term strategy and now take it one day at a time. The next thing is, though you may never find it in a business development book, remember the two frogs that went into a jar of milk, a bucket of milk, I think. And there was one that kept kicking. I want to encourage you not to get paralyzed and disappear and wait for this thing to come out and then tell people that you're available. As Eric Theory has said, one of the biggest calls that we're seeing today is stay top of mind aware, have personalized connections and interactions with your clients. Give yourself simple metrics like every day, I will email one of my top clients, like Catherine has said, your Pareto principle. Every day, I will maybe write 2 paragraphs of content, and on Friday, I will publish. So every week, I will maybe have those 5 paragraphs, and then I send it out on Friday. Every day, I will relook one of those systems that Maria has told me I can use this time to rejig one of my systems. In business development right now, what you want to focus on is retention. We said that there are 4 things: attraction, you attract a client, you win a client, you deliver good work, and then you retain them. Focus your efforts right now on retention, top of mind awareness, and securing your clients and reminding them your value and the problems that you can help them. So thank you, Victor, and everyone else.
Thank you so much. Over to you, Linda. And maybe you can tell us how we can get more information on Lawyers Hub. I've been seeing comments about asking about Lawyers Hub, and you're doing a good job, but maybe people don't understand what you're doing. So maybe you can help us understand as you give us a parting shot.
Okay. Thanks, guys, for coming. I think I found this really interesting. I'd want to urge you to join the Lawyers Hub. We are about law and technology, on how we can leverage law and we can leverage technology to, better deliver justice. And so we do tech policy. We also do a lot of work just empowering lawyers and doing trainings to ensure that you understand where we are at. And so we run an innovation space, and that's where Mulindi is right now. And so if, and I'd want to encourage you, number one, if you have a law firm and you've been paying for space, if you're going down, please just tell your landlord, by the way, I have to leave. We have a co-working space that you can just come and take a desk and you plug in and play and say, you know what, I'm gonna pay for an office space when I can afford it. So if you're looking for cheaper solutions for you to meet your clients and to work from, the Lawyers Hub is beautiful and you can work from there. Number two, the other thing that sort of we do is really just to build a community around the law and tech conversation in Kenya. We also run the Africa Law Tech Festival that just ended in Nairobi in March. And so we have a lot of content on our website as well as on the YouTube channel. So if you're on the YouTube channel, just look for Lawyers Hub Africa. And we have everything on cybersecurity, on startup financing, and all these other things that you could learn through this period. So just go and check out all that. We had an academy that was well attended and it was really nice. So you could use the time right now to learn. And Victor, I just want to add that it's not a good idea at this point. This is my very personal view. I'm not a financial analyst, but it's not a good idea now to take a loan. Sometimes maybe we just need to really downsize and ensure that we're investing in human capital rather than in infrastructure. And so if you can do that at an individual level, please go for it. And as I'd said before, let's get together, because whether we go together or we perish. So we'd rather just get together and see what we can do together. If you want to consider maybe giving your employee, rather than give them a salary, you can tell them, can I give you 5% of the organization or 2%? That way they feel that even though my salary is no longer available, that you're giving me a part of the company, and therefore I can stay long term.
There's a comment by someone here.
Yeah.
Can the Lawyer Hub be rolled out to the Mashinani areas? So
so we've had those conversations, but as you see now, Mashinani is now online, guys. Mashinani is now here. So so I just urge you to join our.
That was by Aseso Omolo, yes.
Okay, but we've done events in Kisumu and Nanyuki together with Maria and the county government as well. So we hope that we can get there once things stabilize, but we are basically online. If you are looking to collaborate with us, please join our membership. It's just 2,000 shillings, but it's going to give you so much value in a year. If you go to lawyershub.org/member, it will automatically just charge your M-Pesa and you quickly join our membership. So I hope that you can join us. And then you can also join our WhatsApp. Our WhatsApp number, I think, has been indicated on the chat group. We'll be able to share with you information in real time on what we do. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Linda. Wow, it's been 2 hours of some wonderful conversations. We've been joined by Olivia Kiratu, the CEO of FarmGrown. We've been joined by Dr. Catherine Gao. Yes, the chairman. We've also been joined by Dr. Catherine Gahu, the chairman of SEO Research Group. We've been joined by Maria Meneka. We've been joined by Daniel Kani and Margaret Jihe of Family Wellness. And I'm sure the conversations have been really helpful. We may not be able to answer all the questions, but if you have put in your email, then we'll be able to be in touch with us. We are going to do more collaborations with the Lawyers Hub, because we believe in collaboration. This is a time to collaborate. This is a time to get more partners on board, discuss the challenges that you're going through, talk about the possibilities that are there. And as we do that, we definitely grow each other. I know a lot has been said, and I'd like to just add by finishing with this quote by Anthony Robbins, that every problem is a gift. Without problems, we would not grow. So I'd like us to look at this as a positive view, that it's a challenge that has come to us. It will help us to grow as individuals. Imagine we'll be having this conversation without COVID. Yeah. So look at it on the brighter side. And as we grow together, help others also from what you learn. If a colleague is struggling with, getting online or getting to know what to do with their clients or their employees, let's help out each other. So to close, I'd like us to share our comments on the chat. We will share all that information to your email. And you can also email us on emerginglawfirmsforum@gmail.com. You can just type that out for me in the chat so that everyone can see. emerginglawfirmsforum@gmail.com. You can reach us on that email. You can also send in your comments to Lawyers Hub. Lawyers Hub, their email. Linda, what's your email so that
our email is available on our website.
yes, the website. Yeah, that's
So
Lawyers.
Lawyers Hub. If you go to lawyershub.org,
yes,
you will see you'll see everything. Phone number, our email is there.
Yes. So please take time and share your comments on email or on the chats that have been given. And as we do that, we'll be able to now know what other topics that you'd like to listen to us. We'll be in touch with you about the next forum, and we'll be able to share with you some of the information that we have already done today. So thank you so much for joining in from all over the country. And thank you so much. So this is the end of the webcast. Thank you for joining us. See you later. Watch out for the information that we'll give on your email addresses about the next forum. Thank you so much. And God bless you. Stay safe. Sanitize. Viva. Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you.